Now, if you thought having Gretchen Felker Martin, a transgender lunatic writer, and yes, that's exactly what that person is, as I thoroughly explained in a previous video. If you thought having that lunatic write Red Hood after they went out and make statements about how they want to slit J.K. Rowling's throat, wrote a book where they burned J.K. Rowling alive in it and bragged about it, and then went out to say that, Osama bin Laden blowing up the World Trade Center was pretty much okay. And that's the one defensible thing they could have. If you thought having that lunatic write a Red Hood book was bad enough, which unbelievably it's all terrible. Wait until you find out that this person has not read anything to do with Red Hood previously, doesn't want to read anything to do with Red Hood, and wants to write their own thing. Because once again, DC lied to people. What a shocker. Let's dive into this article here from Bounding into Comics. Red Hood writer purposefully avoided reading past Jason Todd stories before penning upcoming DC series. I'm not a person who's interested in continuity. This does not shock me at all, and I'll explain why soon enough. Don't worry. Yeah, so in the upcoming book, it's going to be Red Hood and Huntress are going to be out there doing some stuff in a city based off of New Orleans. Not a big fan of Red Hood's new look, but whatever you gonna do it. In a stark case of not knowing one's audience, DC's upcoming Red Hood series writer Gretchen Felker Martin has proudly admitted to not having read a single issue of Jason Todd's comic book history, as she has no interest in continuity impacting her personal take on Batman's former sidekick. This is not shocking. There are many writers who do this, and they get hired simply to check boxes. Marking the comic book debut of Felker Martin, a transgender author best known for her post-apocalyptic anti-turf novel Manhunt, as well as in that book burning J.K. Rowling alive, making threats to slit J.K. Rowling's throat, sending a threat to murder another writer, and then talking about how Osama bin Laden blowing up the World Trade Center and killing thousands of people is defensible. Yeah, that's what that person is known for. DC's Red Hood Volume 1 will see the once dead boy wonder leaving Gotham and lending his gun-toting talents to the city of New Angelique, an in-universe New Orleans analog whose police force has found themselves the pointed targets of a bloodthirsty metahuman. New Angelique, a city drowning in corruption, seems like the perfect place for Red Hood to put down roots, reads the book's official solicit. There's crime, vice, and sedition everywhere. When Jason discovers a superpowered serial killer who is targeting the city's police, he finds himself sucked into a deadly conspiracy with seemingly no end in sight. Why not? But Jason isn't the only person on the scene. Following his trail is Helena Bertinelli, aka Huntress. Is she here to stop him, or will she join his crusade? What will happen when the two black sheep of the Bat family start working together? Well, under Gretchen Felker Martin's writing, one can only imagine. In announcing the series, now listen to this nonsense. DC editor Ariana Totoro promised that Red Hood is the in-continuity story Jason Todd fans have been waiting for, with every element of the book highlighting the core aspects of Jason's character, his difficulties, his personal connections, his badass training, his brooding hotness, and his violent approach to heroism. All of that is what Ariana Totoro said, because as far as these press releases that they put out, someone writes it for them, they read it, and that's all. but more than likely they just bold-facedly lie. Gretchen Felker Martin was hired to tick boxes. Why no one checked that this lunatic and what they were doing, I don't know. However, I have been informed that somebody apparently did go and check, and this Red Hood thing is going to be a one and done for Gretchen Felker Martin. And once it's over, you're never going to see this person in DC again. That's what they're saying. I, however, am skeptical. But that is the long and short of it. So we shall see. Yet, despite Turturro's insistence that the book would be honoring the whole of Jason's character, one wonders just how it will accomplish this goal given Felker Martin's self-admitted refusal to engage in any way with the hero's established canon. Why not? Amidst a recent Red Hood-centric interview given to the general nerd blog Heat Death, God have mercy, that's a terrible name for something, but all right. Felker Martin was asked as to whether or not she had prepared for her DC assignment by reading any of Jason's past comic book adventures, to which the writer asserted, "I'm sure that many readers will be displeased to hear this, but no." Yep, no. I did talk quite a bit to a good friend of mine who's been following Jason Todd comics for 12 years at this point. And that was where I got most of my basic information. But I wanted to form my own impression of the character, she explained. Those previous comics aren't literary traditions that hold a lot for me. And I respect that they are tremendously meaningful to a lot of people. But given that DC asked me, emphasis was to write this story, I thought that I would write it. I'm not a person who's interested in continuity. And this is a very important point, people. Because a lot of times, these comic book companies, be it Marvel or DC, hire writers who don't give a flying foot about what they're writing. You saw it also when it came to the MCU, when it had one of the producers come out and say that they encourage people not to read the comics. Just slap the name on it and do whatever you want. That's what they want. This is what happens. Because you start off saying that, you talk to a good friend of yours who's been following Jason Todd comics for 12 years at this point. Now, whether this person or real is not, I don't know. But that is where you got your basic information. Somebody tell it to you, you didn't pick up a book at all. Right? And then you go on to say that, since DC asked you to write this story, I thought I would write it. I'm not a person who's interested in continuity. You can write a story that you want to tell, but these characters have established history that you have to work with. This is why when you're writing a Thor comic, you can't just simply come out there and say, you know what, Thor has a magic flower that he throws around, because that doesn't make sense. Thor has a hammer called Mjolnir. That is an established fact. But when you go in there and say, listen, I'm just going to take the skin of this character and write whatever shit I want, and anybody who has a problem with it is just going to have to shut up and accept it, that is where the problem starts. Jim Shooter, God rest his soul, talked about this in an interview about how, there are a lot of these editors who don't give oversight to these things. Because your whole point is supposed to be, as an editor, to speak to somebody and say, listen, you can't write this character like this. It doesn't make sense. This is who the character is. Educate these writers. Sit down with them, walk them through it. And you could get good story. When you are more interested in ticking boxes and telling people you could write whatever the hell you want, this is what you keep getting. This is why we keep getting Captain Britain and all that crap failing failing over and over again. Because you don't know what you're writing. You just want to push agendas in these books, and this is the crap you are left with. So Gretchen Felker Martin came out and said, I'm not a person who's interested in continuity, meaning I'm going to write whatever the hell I want. I don't care, that's your problem. This is the kind of nonsense that you're getting. This is it. Met with the observation from her host that so it's not just a fresh start for the character, but it's you starting from just first principles, considering that the character has been through in the broad strokes and going from there. Felker Martin affirmed, yeah, exactly. This is my approach. It's not my version of anyone else's approach. I think that we see this relationship between fandom and fictional characters a lot where over time this sense of ownership develops. Whether it's through fan fiction or just sort of emotional investment, and also inevitably the ideas that live inside people's heads diverge from what's happening on the page, she further opined. And so you get a lot of people who have stopped understanding how to read a comic or a story and then continually frustrate themselves by trying what they actually want is probably to create their own work. So not only does Gretchen Felker Martin never read anything to do with Jason Todd, is not interested in continuity, now is coming out and saying, people don't know how to read comic books. Yeah, people don't know how to read comic books because what you're supposed to do is sit down and let these writers come and write whatever you want. Again, as I say, you can write a story, but it has to fit with what's going on in the pages. This is why I tell people these things worry me. You look at what happened in the James Gunn's Superman movie where he changed Superman's origin and ability that Jor-El and Lara sent him to conquer the earth, enslave mankind, build a harem and bang from morning till night to repopulate Krypton. You understand me? And there's some might say, oh, it's just a little change. No, because these are the kind of things that happen. They are established laws for these characters. What is going to be next? Batman murdered his parents because he wanted their money? It might sound ridiculous, but does it sound any more ridiculous than Superman's parents sending their infant baby to Earth to conquer it? How was that going to work out? I don't know. But this is the problem with it. And now you have Gretchen Felker Martin saying that, people don't actually know how to read comics. Yeah, this just keeps getting better. Continues on. And I encourage that the writer ultimately exclaimed, if there's some version that people want to see executed, they should go and execute it. And although I know it's completely futile, I just ask that they understand that I'm intentionally not in conversation with those ideas. You see, when you talk about if people have some kind of version they want, they should go and execute it, this is how a lot of this whole ridiculous and nonsensical, fan fiction crap became reality. Because the whole thing with Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy was somebody's weird fan fiction that just rolled over into comics and has completely destroyed these two characters. It's one of the worst relationships you'll ever find in comics because Poison Ivy treats Harley like she's like a big neurotic baby, and for some reason we're all supposed to find this supposedly sexy between the two of them. No, it's not. It's ridiculous. So when people want to write their fan fiction, write your fan fiction. Nothing wrong with that. But the stories when it comes to these characters have a certain thing that they have to work with, and talented writers can work with that. But when you're a hack who encourages murder, why not shoot your mouth off? Sure. Featuring art from Batman, The Brave and the Bold Volume 2 and Jenny Sparks Volume 1 artist Jeff Spokes, the first issue of Felker Martin's Red Hood Volume 1 is currently set to hit shelves on September 10th. Yeah. So this is what we're getting, right? Gretchen Felker Martin has come out and asserted that, has never read anything to do with Jason Todd before, is not interested in continuity, and is a certified nutcase, and this is the person DC is writing this. So like I said, I've gotten information that, somebody apparently finally did a background check and has decided that, once this book is over, Gretchen Felker Martin is out the door for good. Why in the name of Gobirus at all? As far as I am concerned, what you could have done was get somebody else to come in and write the book. Even if you already had 20 pages done, like, you could have reworked something. But no, when you're DC Comics and you're idiots, this is what you get. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. If you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear it. If you like the video, then hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a new video. And I shall see you all next time. Take care.